Thank you so much for coming to this session. I think we'll get started. So welcome, I'm Eleanor. I'm here with Jack. Marion was here 1 second ago, she will be back. And Tom Meltzer is also helping us with this presentation. He wasn't able to attend the HPC Days this year. So in this session, we want to discuss the concept of the implementation gap, which is around implementing equality, diversity, and inclusion into everyday workplace cultures, and sort of understanding why sort of all this best practice that we know exists out there somewhere isn't really being applied, or maybe doesn't necessarily get implemented in the way that it probably should. So we're here actually representing Women in HPC, which is an international network of women and underrepresented people working on high-performance computing. So we're all about community support, opportunities for underrepresented people, amplifying the voices of underrepresented role models, and sort of showing people that this career is something that they can do and be supported in throughout the whole life cycle of their career. So if you want to chat more about women in HPC, you can chat to me. We did have on the cake booth some Women HPC stickers, which have been migrated down there, if you're sticker motivated, which I definitely am. But yeah, come chat about that if you'd like to. So I'm going to take you quickly through the sort of motivations and goals and what the implementation gap is. And then we're going to have 3 community perspectives on challenges around EDI, and where they will present sort of the challenge that is in their context, what they've been doing to try and solve it, and then we are going to work as a group to see where these gaps could maybe be closed, what could we do on different levels to try and fix this problem, practical actions. So, as we all should be aware, I hope, diversity and inclusion are completely essential for everything we do, in particular when we're in a research and science-driven field. Diversity strengthens our creativity, our innovation, and our problem-solving because we have all of these people with different backgrounds and different skills, different outlooks on life, all collaborating on one thing. When we have that, we have people who are challenging our assumptions, and we generate better ideas because we have all of this really good foundation underneath everything that we're doing. However, in a complete nutshell, this is really simplifying the problem, but we do have a clear EDI challenge. We have some groups that remain significantly underrepresented across their career stages, across their roles, across disciplines, at all sorts of different levels. And in addition to that, our culture and the systems that we do have in place do not consistently allow people to thrive and contribute meaningfully. So the consequences of this are that people are facing barriers that reduce their opportunities to contribute, so then we don't get this benefit from their knowledge and their perspectives because maybe they don't feel comfortable speaking up, maybe they don't have sort of the support networks that other people have in place for them. So their participation is limited. In turn, this kind of restricts progression and career development, meaning that talented people leave the field because they don't see themselves represented and supported. And then the visibility of successful role models is limited as well. So people don't see this future for themselves. Representation has a huge impact on what you feel like you can do in the future. And that barrier is so much harder to hurdle if you don't see yourself represented. So then people are less likely to join. And what we have is this kind of reinforcing cycle where there's lack of representation, which means people don't join, and then the people who are there feel like they can't continue, so then they leave, and then blah, blah, blah. This keeps going over and over and over. And this is something that means that we're losing talent, we're losing these perspectives, and we're weakening ourselves as a whole. It's something that we need to have a specific intervention for. But, of course, the great news is we know what we should be doing, right? So we have all of these official policies and standards set at the UKRI level if you're part of that ecosystem, set at your organisation, your institution, your employer, codes of conduct, all this kind of thing. They're defining expectations for behaviour and procedures, and they're setting sort of the goal and the vision for the future that we would like to have. And then we also have these community-led initiatives like Women in HPC, which are often volunteer-led. They're driven by underrepresented voices who have these lived experiences, and they know what they would like their future to look like. They're sort of advising and raising awareness of the challenges that they are realistically facing in their day-to-day work. And this is where we get underrepresented people having support and networks and opportunities sort of widened for them through these initiatives. So that's kind of solving some of the barriers to participation. So we have all of that lovely list of things. Why are we still facing that challenge of underrepresentation and people not feeling like they're included? So on the side of the official policies and standards, these are not always consistently implemented, they're not monitored consistently, and they're not consistently resourced. So this is where the phrase of tick box exercise can kind of come in, because people can say, oh yeah, I'm at the start of my project, I've got all of these amazing plans I'm going to do, but maybe it's not necessarily sort of tracked towards the end and it doesn't actually happen, it's just a tick box. And then for the community-led initiatives side, they're very frequently under-resourced. They're driven by volunteers, people who already have these really busy lives, really busy careers, and they're dedicating time to this because they feel passionate and they feel like they're not being included in something that they love to do. So these community-led initiatives really struggle to sustain momentum and sustain influence. And they also struggle to have the impact that they probably deserve to have because it needs so much work to drive these things forward. And this is what we call the implementation gap. So it's that disconnect between all of these amazing best practices, all of these policies, standards and things, and then the reality of the workplace culture, which isn't really keeping up to pace with it. So that's what we're calling the implementation gap. And that's what we want to discuss today and hear kind of your perspectives and hear from our speakers what sort of challenges that they're facing in their contexts. So how do we close the gap? And I'll pass over to Marion to chair the section of our speakers.
Thank you. So yes, we have a couple of speakers today from various HPC related, mostly, or funding related spaces. So we've invited Luigi because we had a couple of discussions with him about frustrations that he has had in your HPC around EDI and EDI initiatives. And also last year at CAUK, I had a chat with Brian who was talking about, oh, I did all these things in UKRI about diverse panels and so, but now still people are saying, oh, things are not happening and it's not possible. So Charlotte will present about that. And then we also have the Kate Kosek EDI working group with 3 sub-working groups where various things are being discussed and things not try to be solved, but hopefully some progress being made. So with all of this, we have a HackPad, a HackMD. So it would be great if you could scan this QR code. You will find a couple of sentences or like an overview type of thing, and then there will be sections for each of our speakers. And you can add your questions there. That's especially also for our participants online. They can add their questions and their thoughts, and then there will be also space for a discussion, which Jack will lead later on. But what I want you to do now by listening to the talks is to just reflect on these 3 questions. So the first question being, okay, what can I personally do? What is something that an individual can do to help change these things? And then the next thing, okay, what can the people who have a bit more like agency or so do? What can my boss do? What can basically the layer above us do? And then what actually needs a structural change? So what is something where we have to lobby for big things to change? And you can start to put down your ideas and your thoughts about these talks in the HackPad already, and then we'll continue to use those later on. Our first speaker is Luigi, and yeah, I already said he'll talk about your HPC.
Yeah, thank you. Right. So, well, thank you for inviting me. It's nice to be back. I do have a number of institutional roles that give me some perspective on this kind of problems. I mean, I'm sharing the Euro HPC allocation for all of Europe, so I do see all the proposals, and I evaluate all the proposals. I'm also chairing the Iraq board within SDFC, and I'm recently become a member of the computing advisory panel for SDFC. So I think I fall into the category of people that should have some agency, or at least I feel I have a duty to try to get something done. And the black background of this slide is a very honest reflection of my mood at the moment. I'm not optimistic, but anyway. So what I'm going to do today is that I'm going to present you an idea that I've been sort of thinking about for a long time, and any comments, any support, any lobbying, I think is very welcome. So let me start from the beginning. As I said, we do see a lot of proposals in Euro HPC, and because obviously we all care about these issues, we monitor things very carefully. So we do see, we do collect a lot of data. We've been doing it for many years. So we've got 22, 23, 24, 25. This is the gender distribution. I mean, you can extend this to any other kind of underrepresented category. Gender is probably the most visible one. I don't think I need to explain the legend of these plots. I mean, the big slice of the pie are males, and the small slice is the rest. Okay. And if you want to look at the number, we went from 25% female or not male proposals in 22 to 18, 8%, 16%, 15%. So we're not making progress. And every year we look at these plots. It doesn't take a lot of effort. It's a spreadsheet. So you press a button and you get the pie chart. So do we really care? It's good to monitor, but maybe at some point we also need to do something. And going back to what Eleanor was saying a moment ago, the thing I want to address is that if we want to do something, it has to be properly resourced, which means money. Okay? You can have a lot of good ideas, but at some point we need to put the money where our mouth is. Okay? Right. So I think it's clear that we have a problem, and we may decide whether we care or not. If you decide that you care, you go to step 2, and you can say, well, it's unavoidable because this is what our community looks like, so we stop caring until we sort the problems in the community. I don't think that's a good solution. And we know that there are multiple reasons, right, for the inequality. I mean, I mentioned a few in the introduction. Male representation of science. The one I want to focus mostly today is the precarity of academic careers, and more in particular, I want to try to focus on the causes that are intrinsic in the way HPC funding is organized. Okay? So, is there anything that we can do in the way we fund HPC that can have an impact on the quality that we have seen? And actually, just a side comment. I mean, these are small numbers. Okay, so you don't need huge resources to make a difference. You can change the shape of the field with a modest investment. Okay, so I will present sort of a suggestion, and I would be curious to hear why you think we're not doing anything like that. So I think it's important to fund people, right? If you want to address these kind of problems, this is not a new idea. We've been discussing this multiple times in multiple contexts. I think we discussed RSCs last time I was here. And this is part of the same problem. I mean, we need to fund people. And HPC is an expensive field, right? I mean, if you look at Euro HPC is an investment of several billions. The unit doesn't matter. The NNSS, the new supercomputer we're going to have is about 700 million, plus or minus. AI hardware, another billion. So these are really very, very big numbers. And so, just a small fraction of these budgets, a very small fraction. You can do the maths as a homework, but a very small fraction, a percentage, 1% of these numbers would fund a lot of people, and in particular, it would fund fellowships in HPC for underrepresented categories. Okay, so this is the idea is that just look at the electricity cost for running these machines. Right? If you switch off these machines for a bank holiday weekend, you fund a person. Okay? So I'm not asking for the moon. You just have to want to do it. And this would this would not be the solution, but it would be a seed which would start developing a more diverse ecosystem, and then these things they snowball, right? I mean, once you have more role models, once you have more people in the field, you can attract other people, and eventually things will improve. Again, we are talking small numbers, so it's difficult to do any statistics. It's difficult to set a clear sort of target. There is an example where where the statistics is much larger. This is the number of women elected in the French Parliament. I mentioned that because I happened to read an article about that a couple of days ago. At some point, France introduced a minimum number of women that had to be elected in the parliament. It started at 10%, and then by itself, this number grew by 30%. Okay, so once you plant seeds, you actually have an impact on the ecosystem. So can it be done? I mean, is this? I'm just. Am I hallucinating, or can it be done? Well, the answer is yes. We did it. Right. The reason I'm advocating for this idea is because we did it in Edinburgh in physics. Okay, where a few years ago we started a scheme. It's called the Elizabeth Gardner Fellowships. These are 4-year fellowships for underrepresented categories, right? And the idea is to, as it says on the team, is to encourage diversity. So I made a summary of what is written here in small fonts. This is what the scheme is supposed to do, right? These are 4-year fellowships. So it gives, first of all, some stability at a critical stage in the career. Remember what I had a couple of slides ago, where a lot of people drop because of uncertainty, right? So this gives the fellows some stability. The fellowship comes with a sort of mentoring program to try to embed the fellows into the activities of the school, develop their careers, and submit proposals to secure either more external funding or computer time in the case of HPC or whatever they need to do. Again, we've been running the scheme for just a few years, very small numbers, but it does work. Okay, some of the fellows we hire managed to get ERC positions, and then when you have a 4-year fellowship and on top of that an ERC, all of a sudden you become a much more attractive candidate. Okay, so small things, but very concrete. They don't cost very much in the sort of grand scheme of things, but they do work. Now, of course, it has to be fine-tuned to our own environment, and has to be fine-tuned to match the sort of new HPC regulations. It's something we should do at UKRI level as well. Right? There is no reason for not having this kind of scheme in the UK. And so my question is why are we not doing it? And it's a genuine question. I mean, I don't have an answer. It's not the first time I mentioned this, and it has always been received with some kind of lukewarm feelings. Europe has a big scheme for attracting talent. That's what they say. They have over 100 initiatives. Actually, if you read carefully, 101. So indeed, it's more than 100. At the same time, EuroHPC doesn't have a fellowship for underrepresented categories. By the way, this is another 900 million. I remember that the fellowship costs 100K per year. So 500,000 gives you 5 years. 500,000 is one fraction. I don't need to tell you that. But we don't have it. So is it done? No. And I really want to know why. You know, it's not a rhetorical question. It's a question I encourage you to ask around. And if you get any answer, let me know. If anybody in the audience is interested, I'm very happy to help. Questions and comments are welcome. And in the meantime, we will keep producing pie charts patiently until something happens. Thank you.
Again, sorry. But this is another one of my EDI hats where I'm chairing this working group, which is a collaboration between CAKE and COSEC. So I'll start there if you're unfamiliar, or with the digital research infrastructure landscape. And I guess what we sort of how we take that definition. So this is a UKRI funded program connecting researchers and innovators to the things that they need to do, like ambitious and creative research in a nutshell. And that includes everything from the data services to the HPC resources, but also for support people's careers and developing techniques and tools and their leadership and collaboration. And I've included the plus because the actual landscape that CAKE and COSEC kind of are involved in is actually much wider than what's specifically funded under that program. There are so many other people that benefit from the developments of skills and collaborations and things that are wider than specifically funded that will benefit from that. And then we also have an explicit focus on supporting new and emerging communities that maybe are not quite at the place where they're looking at data services, but in the future could benefit from it. So this is CAKE. I think throughout the week we've been kind of sprinkled through sessions, so hopefully you're familiar. Sprinkled, pardon the pun. But within the DRI program, what we are there for is to help coordinate the knowledge exchange. I think of it as kind of community building around collaboration. And the way that we've taken this is to try and remove the barriers so that knowledge exchange is a bit easier and people can just focus on doing the work and the bit that they really like. So we've done things like provided a DRI landscape overview. We have an events calendar and a funding opportunities. So you can go to our website and see everything in one place. You don't have to scroll through all the different project websites, which I think is actually a small thing, but quite helpful. We also have Cake Box with the puns keep coming. We've got sprinkles of knowledge on there as well, just as a shout out of another cute thing. But that's where we've got all the tools and expertise and resources that we're keeping in one place, again, so that you can find how to do knowledge exchange. And then we have funding calls for fellowships. The next cohort was announced yesterday and will be on our website very soon, so that's quite exciting. Retreats call is open, our placements and visits call is open. Come and chat to us. Me and Mary are both co-Is. Darren's the project manager, Nick and Tobias are running around. There's quite a lot of us here. So that's CAKE. And then COSEC, I'll do my best to explain, but I have the QR code here which explains it better than me. But they are enabling and supporting 25 different UKRI-funded communities. So if you've heard of things like the CCPs or the HECs or some of those acronyms and domain-specific technical teams, that's all supported by COSEC, and their goal is to deliver research software as an infrastructure. And then the COSEC guys are kind of doing the coordinating and then representing the needs of those communities. So they're sitting on top of that 25 pyramid. Not really a pyramid. Okay, so we've come together for our challenge around EDI in the DRI landscape. EDI is a clear area where knowledge exchange and better coordination and sharing of things that we've all done could have a significant impact. As we've already discussed today, we already have awareness of the challenges we're facing. We have experts, we have consultants, we have people who have lived experience, so we have access to all of those things. And we have all of these EDI policies, standards, guidance. But I tend to hear people with really practical everyday problems, not really knowing what to do. So yesterday in the DRI session, we were talking about hackathons and just how do you run an inclusive hackathon? How do you choose speakers so that your panel feels balanced? How do you have an inclusive networking space? It's all of these practical things that, despite all of this guidance and policies and knowledge, is actually really hard to know where to start. And I thought I'd work through an example because it's actually quite, I think you'll probably relate to this. So if you're trying to run an inclusive meeting, you would obviously Google it. So I Googled it, and you get loads and loads of guidance, frameworks, templates. Everything is a tiny bit different. Every single one has a slightly different tip or something new. There's very little evidence to show if something's worked, where this advice has come from other than someone's opinion. And there's all these new concepts and terminology. Like, I think I've been fairly involved with EDI for quite a while, and I've never heard of the 40-20-40 rule, for example. There's also quite scary things that come up, like how to write an accessible agenda. I would never really think of that as something that comes under EDI naturally. Or inclusive catering, where temperatures of food can be something that makes people feel really uncomfortable. So you find all of this, and it's a bit like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. So you maybe dig deeper, whack a few keywords into your Google search, and now you get more tailored guidance. That's fine. You get scientific meetings, how to understand all the jargon we use, all of that. But there's still an awful lot of stuff. And now it feels complicated because everything feels really important. Okay, maybe I'll take a step back. I'll go to the University of Edinburgh, my institution, and see what they've got. And they have pages and pages of very formal, scary-looking frameworks and policies, and all of that feels really important as well. So now I'm really overwhelmed and I'm scared. I care about all of this. I really want to do it. I'm already really busy. I don't have time to have a degree in EDI. And I'm also, even if I do try, I have no idea what to prioritize. Whatever I do will not be perfect according to this buckets and buckets of knowledge I've found. It feels way too hard. I don't know what to do. So that's the challenge that the Cape COSEC group is trying to solve. We're trying to make it easier for the people who are working in our communities to do this. We don't want to reinvent the wheel. We want to take the existing knowledge, distill it, and then tailor it so that it's kind of easier to apply into meaningful everyday action. And Cape and COSEC is quite a good opportunity to do this because we are kind of directly connected into all of these diverse communities. We can hear what they actually struggle with and then help to translate that. And then once we've hopefully solved all of our challenges, we can amplify all the good practice across the networks that we have access to. And the way we have decided to do this is to organize ourselves into these three categories, mainly because we're trying to follow our own philosophy and make sure everyone can meaningfully contribute, and there's quite a lot of members in this group. So I'll take you through these three. First, we have the community outreach, and that's to make sure that our working group is grounded in reality and we're not just assuming the challenges that our community is actually facing. So we're trying to shape what we do by the needs of the community that are engaging with us. What we are primarily doing at the moment is developing a community survey. So you want to understand, if people hear the phrase EDI, what do they actually think? What resources are they using now? Where and what challenges would they appreciate guidance on, that kind of thing. This will be released very soon. We are going to be developing a strategy to try and make sure that we're reaching as further than just the people who are directly connected to us. But the one place I know this will be posted is the Cake LinkedIn, so you can go there to please engage with it. We would really appreciate it. And the challenges this particular group is facing is around asking the right questions so that we are protecting people whilst getting useful insights. We don't want to be sort of collecting really personal information from people, but we want to make sure that we're also capturing the story correctly. That's actually a really, really hard balance to strike. Reaching the full community, as I just said, and we want to make sure that the survey turns into a useful community resource, not just advising the working group. So it's kind of looking at what that might look like once we're all finished. Then the next mini working group is the topic-based guides, and this is kind of the hands-on sort of practical guidance translation. So curating things that already exist, not reinventing, but translating and analysing and adapting it so that it's directly applicable to our community and what they are doing. They've selected 2 areas to start with, so events and recruitment. And the first thing they've been kind of working on is, number one, this Moscow analysis for how to select a resource, but also a risk register, which was an interesting conversation they had. Because once you start digging in, is all of this information something that we want to disseminate to people? We need to make sure that what we're sharing is quote unquote good advice in some way. So that's a really difficult challenge to sort of hurdle over. So that's something they've been discussing and developing a strategy for. So there we go. One of their challenges is how to identify a good guide. How do you measure the effectiveness or the risk around those? How do you represent all the levels of guidance? How do you maintain anything that we signpost going forward in the future? And finally, we have measuring impact, because we want to, again, make sure that what we're doing is having a positive impact. We want to see what the metrics for EDI success is, accountability, that kind of thing. And this group has, I think this is a really hard one to approach. So they've had a hard time getting going, discussing terminology, impact for who needs to care, where does this accountability sit? I think the truth is probably on many different levels. It's quite a difficult problem to solve. One of the interesting things they've been discussing is looking into HR practices and seeing if the metrics that HR teams at universities and institutions are collecting, so maybe like the number of people who have raised things is maybe a good thing to track. That's quite an interesting idea, I thought. And yeah, they're facing exactly that. What should we measure? How do you measure something that's basically a culture change? And can you use simple things like engagement or participation in the short term, or does that misguide us because it's kind of that's very difficult to sort of have. It's very nuanced, I guess. Yeah, so that's quite an interesting problem as well. Okay, that's everything I wanted to share with you. We are open to new members, so if you're interested in joining us and this is something that sounds like you'd like to get involved in, please come and have a chat, or you can email me. And all of our minutes and our outputs and collection of EDIA resources is available on Cakebox, so you can kind of see what we're all about before joining. I think my question that I wanted you guys to discuss in this next breakout is, what would it take to make EDI action easier for you? So what are you struggling with? What are the challenges? Where is this sort of not linking up? So, yeah.
Thank you.